Hello, Emma. Thanks so much for being on.
Of course. Thanks for letting me reschedule. I feel like after COVID, I'm just getting more sick more easily. I mean, I only had it twice, I think, but I don't know. I'm like, my immune system is worse, or
It's kind of
maybe I'm just
shot.
getting old.
Yeah, man. I feel you. I mean, like I have a 2-year-old, so like we're getting everything. Just like a vector. But I'm glad. I was afraid you were gonna get sick today because I feel like every time you've been scheduled, gotten sick.
Well, it's just because
And
I
it's
don't
like
really like talking to you. I think
you're like, I'm sick. Wait, okay, not even naming names, but I'm gonna name his name because I kind of want to shame him to come on. But Michael Moore has definitely given me the worst excuse twice
Aw.
for why he couldn't come on. And like you can only have so many deaths in the family. I love you, Mike, but you can like I want your family to be okay.
well, called out. The gauntlet is thrown down.
Clip it. But Emma, we start every show with what you are bitching about. There's so many things that we're not going to get to today, or just things in your life. I don't know. What are you bitching about?
What I am bitching about is the fact that I think our press currently and many Democrats are not asking basic questions about this mass deportation that the Trump administration is kicking off. We talked about this a bit on the show today, but the numbers are that there have been around 8,000 arrests by ICE, and Trump has given them a quota of like 1,200 a day is what they're supposed to be meeting. It's been 2 weeks since 2 weeks and change since Trump got inaugurated, and the only evidence that we have so far about these folks being criminals, as the administration is claiming, are some social media posts on the ICE Twitter account that just like list a half or a few dozen of the arrests and these people's criminal records. That's a pretty big gap, a few dozen and 8,000. The reality is that they are trying to classify even crossing the border without documentation as an act of criminality, which in their mind means that their rights are going to be able to be removed and they can be sent to a concentration camp on Guantanamo Bay.
Yep.
So they raise the threshold of, oh, if you have a criminal record and you're in a gang, maybe, okay, now you're a terrorist and we're going to put you in Guantanamo Bay, basically. And if you cross here illegally, which is the equivalent of a civic violation, like, I don't know, jaywalking or getting a parking ticket, well, you're a criminal now too. So probably you don't deserve habeas corpus rights or anything kind of like that.
Yeah.
So,
or if you were a suspect of shoplifting, you don't have to have a charge, but maybe someone thought you maybe stole something.
Yeah.
You under the Lake and Riley Act, you could get detained.
Yeah, exactly right. And like, these are just common sense questions that the press in particular, and really, I mean, the Democrats need to lead in this way. The Republicans are phenomenal at repeating the exact same thing with their message discipline and getting the press to respond to it and basically treat it like a thing. I mean, DEI is a prime example of this right now. It's just immensely upsetting to me that there are thousands of people whose lives are being torn apart. We covered on the show the other day this 18-year-old girl who's still in 11th grade, whose family crossed without documentation, but they were going through the process of applying for asylum. She got into a fight with her brother, who's 12, over a cell phone, and their neighbor called the cops. And she was detained as an 18-year-old by ICE at a facility in Maine, even though the local Massachusetts DA said, don't charge this person. She was detained for days. But we don't hear more from them. Why? Because everybody that is subjected to this is terrified. So it's this class of people that are under a shroud of secrecy, and the Trump administration is trying to use that to demonize them. And just today, he's talking about using the act that was used for Japanese internment to justify taking them to Gitmo and potentially other camps, likely along the Texas border as well.
The stuff that's happening now is so scary, guys. It's really getting into like Nazi shit, guys. It's that Nazi shit already. But, like, the country is, like, literally slowly turning into, like, fucking some Nazi shit, dude. It's fucking crazy. They're literally going after immigrants, like especially like if you're brown, black, Latino, you know what I mean? Like Chinese, everybody, dude. That's fucking crazy. They're trying to scare us. But there's more of us than there are of them. Remember that.
This is insane, and we're getting minimal pushback, and I find the lack of clarity and the lack of, I don't know, desire to seek said clarity by the press to be very scary.
Yeah, and the lack of humanizing the people who might be caught up. And it's because they're all just rubberneckers. They love it. They love to rubberneck the like, oh my God, the authoritarianism. Can he do that? Wow. It's, it's like Doge, I think, Adam Johnson, who was on the program last week, had just wrote something about how Doge has been normalized by the press. Oh yeah, it's super normal to have like two private citizens unelected create an entirely new, body of the government. Like, it is on the press, and it's part and parcel of why we've demonized immigrants to this point, is because we're not actually listening to them. That's a good thing to bitch about. We have so much, and our newest segment, I'm going to treat you to this and get through this as quickly as possible. This is bad.
Hey.
Chaplin mustache?
Yeah, oh yeah. Just Chaplin. This week in Orange Man Bad, the Trump administration is apparently devising an executive order to dissolve the Department of Education, which honestly is real stolen Betsy DeVos valor. I feel like pour one out for Betsy. She wanted to do it first. He is also prepping, as Emma mentioned, detention camps in Guantanamo Bay to house an unprecedented 30,000 migrants. A little bit more on that later. Trump is also erasing HIPAA from HHS websites. So no more privacy between you and your doctor. Again, this is all to go after mostly women. He's also randomly tweeting about land theft in South Africa and certain classes of people being mistreated. I think he's going to come out as Afrikaans very, very soon, TBD. Chris Wright, another cabinet nominee, has been confirmed as energy secretary by the Senate, including 7 Democrats. Trump also ordered the release of California in order to provide water to Southern California. Only that's not how dams or water work. And now those dams are just flooding an area just to the north of LA with water. But I just don't want to see any more Congress created the Dust Bowl signs on the I-5. Okay, guys, you know who you are, Central Valley MAGA. I know you. President of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, has offered to take alleged criminals, read undocumented people from the U.S., and put them in Salvadoran prisons for a fee, which means we will be housing people fleeing narco violence with the alleged purveyors of narco violence. What could go wrong? Federal grants for science research using the words like bias, diversify, females, and political have been scrubbed and rescinded. Also, the T and other letters from LGBTQ on government websites have been dropped. I'm like, just call it L. What are you going to do? Government websites like the CDC, Census, and FDA have been mass deleted. And Joe Kent has been nominated as director of national counterterrorism. He is a friend of Nick Fuentes, has paid a Proud Boy for consulting.
What?
And has been endorsed by the Oath Keepers.
Oh my God.
Also, finally, Trump just said just now, look, the Gaza thing hasn't worked. It's never worked. And I feel differently about Gaza than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land. We'll get some people to put up the money and make it nice. But they have no alternative but to leave. That is Orange Man Bad. You think that's a Kushnerism?
No, I think that
here comes the genocide. He's gonna do it, dude. He's gonna do it. He's gonna fulfill Israel's destiny.
Kushner wants the Gaza for luxury condos. I mean, he said as much during his talk. I guess it was at Harvard in March of last year.
Just can you imagine, even if you were so craven and disgusting and bloodthirsty and pro-ethnic cleansing, living in a condo just on top of mass graves, on top of where people were genocided.
I couldn't imagine doing it, but the Israeli public has no problem living.
Guys, if you guys want to support this little channel, subscribe, like, and comment. And check this out. If you guys want to subscribe, you can do this maybe, or Ah, shit. That's not what I wanted to do. How do you... I would like to replay this. That's not what I want. Stream elements. We can keep playing this.
Let's talk. Let's give you all a few minutes to join, see what's up. Hello, everyone. Just giving it a second for folks to join.
Queen.
Let's talk about.
Yes, Queen. Yes, Queen. I bow. This woman needs to be ranked up in the Democratic Party. What the hell? They chose some dude with like esophageal cancer over her. Are you fucking serious? These fucking dude, Democrats are trying to lose. Like they know they want to collapse this country. I don't know what the hell's going on with them. Not all Democrats. There's a few fighters in there, but damn, man.
About what's going on. We are going to discuss what is happening right now.
Oh, my bad. Wait. We're not there yet.
Next door to a mass extermination camp, essentially, because Gaza's borders are controlled by Israel, land and sea, and there's no way out. And they've destroyed over 90% of the structures, and most estimates say they've killed well over like 130,000 people, and that's being generous.
Yep.
They're okay with that, and they seem to say it's justified because, you know, the babies, we have to kill the babies because the Arabs are so barbaric that they use the babies as human shields.
Of course,
because they're okay with babies getting killed. We have to kill the babies.
Wait, let me just put on my liberal Zionist hat and be like, actually, the United States was built on a massive, like, indigenous genocidal grave, so...
Yeah.
That's bad, though. That's not okay. Just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it could keep happening.
Not live streamed. Not live streamed for everyone to see.
Let us have our own, condos on our genocidal graves, so thank you. All right, let's get into it, guys. A lot of stuff to get to. This is the week where... This is the week where it's really Elon's coup, right, Emma? There has been this injunction on federal spending federal spending freeze, and that got extended by a judge, I think, just yesterday or today. It's unclear how long that's going to hold for. But meanwhile, if you have access to, let's say, I don't know, the Treasury and the form for how Social Security, Medicare, federal salaries are distributed, you might not need it to be legal at all if you can already do that. And so over the weekend, that seems like exactly what happened when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent gave Doge representatives, who we're going to talk about in a second, access to the purse strings of the entire nation, of the Treasury.
Why are these motherfuckers doing that? Don't allow these billionaires to do that shit.
And before we get into like who the hell is running it, I think it's important to listen to why. Like, what is the goal for this? In case we didn't know, AOC had a very long live yesterday, and I just clipped this up because it is about a wealth transfer from all of us to Elon and the oligarchs.
They're gonna steal our money, y'all. They're stealing our money.
Those tax cuts had a sunset period, and that sunset period occurs in 2025. The cost of these tax cuts are to the tune of about $4 trillion. And in order to extend them, you need to find $4 trillion. Well, where do you look? The biggest one that they are going after is Medicaid, okay? They have Medicaid in their sights, and they want to cut $2 trillion. What are they not going to include in their government waste assessments? Take a big guess. Defense spending.
Okay, so she's kind of spelling it out. It's like this is about trying to find places to cut. Remember, Doge has been obsessed with this $4 trillion number. So they want to cut Medicaid again. healthcare assistance for poor, the disabled, new moms, infants, people who have way too much already. And I didn't know, Emma, that they like needed to justify extending the tax breaks. Like I didn't know that they were like desperately being like, okay, we want to extend these tax breaks for the ultra wealthy that Trump passed in his first term. So now we have to like make up the difference. I thought they could just do it and add to the deficit and be like, whatevs.
Well, I think that the immiseration of the rest of the population is like the cherry on top, because it's more, I would say, a way to cover their ass for their completely false, like, stated desire that they care about cutting into the deficit. I mean,
Right.
The Trump administration exploded the deficit. And you know how you can reduce the deficit? Taxing the rich. You raise more revenue through taxing the rich and closing loopholes and targeting the speculation that this administration is engaged in. And so,
and defense, as AOC mentioned.
What'd you say?
Defense, as AOC mentioned.
Right. I mean, of course they're not going to cut defense. Elon Musk, it was just reported the other day, I didn't know this, but he's been working with Boeing on creating their new fighter jets. I mean, he already, with his Starlink and his defense, he's a top defense contractor. Yep. So the stuff about Trump being anti-war is laughable. I mean, invading the Greenland and taking the Panama Canal, it's all absurd. But they're looking for a pre-justification to call it efficiency, and they're trying to use the model that the entire tech sector has now adopted after Elon Musk purchased Twitter, which is mass layoffs, and making things. And can I curse on here?
Yes.
It's the enshittification of the government, in the same way that, like, that's been the description of
the enshittification of the government. Literally, guys, they're cutting everything. They're trying to like drain every government program, and they're gonna give all that money to the rich. It's a giant tax cut to the rich.
Like late stage tech, where they bumped up against, essentially, this isn't true for the government, but this is what these like anarcho-capitalists think. They basically are like, it's too bloated. It's too much. We got to cut costs. And where do they do it? Not on their backs. That's the whole game. They want to use this as an opportunity to enrich themselves. And I think Musk has a messiah complex, to put it mildly, and he wants to be the world's first trillionaire. But clearly he has, like, I would say, adjacent neo-Nazi views. The natalism was a cue, and now we're in full blown doing Sig Heil's.
Sig Heil was just sort of, speaking of cherries on top.
Within the same week, going and speaking to the far-right nationalist German party that engages in Holocaust denial, even though that's illegal in the country.
I love how we did that just to be like, in case it wasn't clear that was a Sig Heil. Like, in case you thought I was just throwing my heart, which he, by the way, never made an excuse that way. He just said, oh, they're freaking out, about nothing. And it's like, but he didn't actually say, I was simply throwing my heart. Everyone else said somehow this phrase we're supposed to know. So yes, he is a Nazi.
Well, you say that, right? And it reminded me, because we read this, I posted this on Instagram, and if people want to check it out, I just think it's a Sartre quote from like the time of the fascists, or not the time of the fascists, but Hitler's time. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for, by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. And that quote, decades old, is as applicable to this as anything. And so I guess, like, really to get back to your first question about the tax cuts, it's the access to the treasury that Musk has, it's insane. Like, he has no right to this data more than you or I or Johnny or Jill or whatever, or your next door neighbor. he is just getting access to it because he's the richest man on the planet. And there's been a lawsuit filed because it's a privacy violation. Social Security.
I want to go exactly what. So
Yeah.
it's run by civil servants. This is from the Times. The Treasury Department carries out payments submitted to agencies across the government, dispersing more than $5 trillion in fiscal year 2023. It's been historically closely held because it includes sensitive personal information about the millions of Americans who receive Social Security checks, tax refunds, and other payments from the federal government. In other words, all of us, literally all of us. Like,
yeah, it's and he's obsessed with payments. Like, remember how he apparently back in the day he tried to transition PayPal
into X
from this system, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's used by a bunch of other like big tech firms and big online outfits to a Microsoft system that the rest of the PayPal people were like, this is not secure, this is not going to work. And that was when he was ousted from PayPal, but he had all that money, and then he was bought into Tesla, and he pretends like he's created the Teslas, but whatever. The point is just that he also, that was one thing he wanted to do. And then the other thing was he wanted to make PayPal into X. That was his thing, X.com. He has this fixation on it. And he's got one part of that right now, which is X.com. And I think the end goal is to make it into some sort of payment system. And so what would be as useful as humanly possible to creating like some sort of online exchange, so having access to everybody's financial information and social security numbers
and like privatizing the payment system, which the other thing that he claims that he did on Twitter is, because I'm not calling it X, or I try not to.
Never.
Is something, is like he nixed the direct file with the IRS as tax season is really upon us right now. There was a program where you didn't have to pay for TurboTax or for, an accountant or anyone or tax provider to organizer to, help you, which costs so much money. You could directly file with the IRS, which is how it should be. And
exactly. It should be the only show in town. TurboTax should not be legal, but they have a ton of lobbyists. And you know what? Why it works too? Because even lobbying wouldn't get you what they get. It's because fundamentally the Republicans want the relationship between us and the government to be as difficult as possible. And so when people have to file their taxes, the government already knows how much money you owe, by the way. It's already in their database. So they could do it for you. But why do they choose not to do that? The Biden administration, that was a good thing, that direct file thing, but it should be the only way to file your taxes. Truly.
Absolutely.
Why do I use TurboTax. Why do I have to pay like $110 every freaking tax season just to do something that I need to do legally? It makes no sense. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I pay like $2 million in taxes because I got like so much cash.
Once again, we are incredibly wealthy.
Right.
But the best part of the Treasury seizure / scariest part, briefly, is that there are 6 children. There are 6 young men between the ages of 19 and 24, according to Wired, that did this reporting. And according to their public databases, their online presences, and other records, who have little to no government experience and are now playing critical roles in DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency, tasked by executive order with, quote, modernizing federal technology and software to maximize government efficiency and productivity. The engineers all hold nebulous job titles within DOGE, and at least one appears to be working as a volunteer. Here's a picture of a few, like 4 of them.
Oh my god, look at these fucking dorks. These dorks are ruling us right now with Elon Musk's help. These fucking losers, dude. These people need to be fucking wedgied. Stuffed in lockers a little more. I'm sorry.
Akash Boba, Luke Ferriter, Ethan Chautrin, Edward Korestein, Gauthier, Cole Killian, and Gavin Kligger. And they are, some of them are former, one guy is a former Neuralink guy. They're listed
How can they be former anything? They're 19 to 27.
Right, exactly. They're listed, and basically they have like top security clearances. They work out of the agency's top floor, have access to all physical spaces and IT systems, according to a source with knowledge of the GSA's clearance protocols. The source who spoke to Wired on the condition of anonymity because they fear retaliation says they worried that the new teams could bypass regular security clearance protocols to access the agency's sensitive compartmented information facility. Yes, of course they are. And so perhaps this is what you were saying. This is part of that, like, well, we're just going to reorganize how everyone gets paid. And if you happen to be gay, maybe you get a little less, or maybe you get fired.
Basically. Yeah, I mean, those guys would need to get carded at any bar they walk into, and apparently they're now just like government employees because
these are the kids who've been like ruining San Francisco, where I used to live, and the city I love. And I'm just like,
well, what are you saying, that Neuralink was not a success that should be replicated?
No, I definitely think that, yeah, I mean, no. Don't get me started on Neuralink, because I will not shut up. I can't, like, I will start crying and then I'll go on a 20-minute rant. So it's fine. But it's just insane. And then the other thing, obviously, that's happening this week is USAID. So Musk had been tweeting, and now I guess making good on hollowing out or ending USAID. He's tweeting, USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die. Another tweet, government corruption we've seen, government corruption we haven't seen. And it's the iceberg above and below ground. Yes, corruption, like weapons contractors, private citizens running our government right now.
Like the top richest man on the planet running our government, corruption.
Yes.
I got a little rant about corruption whenever you're done, but
No. Well, basically, they Sunday morning, the administration removed 2 top security officials from USAID. They tried to stop reps from Doge from entering. So again, these little twinks. Marco Rubio, I don't know about that, but Marco Rubio has now said that he was going to be the head of the State Department, but then he's like, okay, no, I'm going to pass it on to a different official, actually a State Department official named Pete Morocco, to head it up. Yesterday, Democrats tried to get access to USAID. They were denied, and then they protested outside of it. Now, I do want to talk about corruption, but I want to just say, like, USAID provides really essential services to people around the globe. And I want to play a clip from Ilhan Omar to explain it. But I also want to say that coming from a progressive leftist, non-interventionist standpoint, USAID has also supported really shady, like anti-government initiatives that they say are democracy initiatives, but really are things, to like topple the government of Venezuela or undermine the Cuban government, and just any government that they don't like.
Prime example of NGOs funded by USAID interfering in their government.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there's good, there's bad, but here's why USAID is important. I thought Ilhan Omar made a good point here.
I am exceptionally upset about USAID. I lived in a refugee camp for 4 years as a child surviving civil war. It is the essential programs that USAID provided that kept my family and I fed and safe. It is the resources that so many people around the world rely on. And it is our soft power. Oftentimes, people interact with our country through the military. That does not create love for us, and it certainly does not keep us safe. When the world interacts with Americans through programs that provide essential need, they get to see the heart and compassion of the American people.
Okay, so that was Ilhan Omar. And Emma, the thing that I really think we need to talk more about, and Democrats never talk about this, is like actual soft power, like what it means to be a leader in the world in health and, education, or, providing, whatever sanitation for countries around the world. There's a reason that Russia, with their Sputnik vaccine, when the US was denying vaccine access and patent access to the world under COVID, Russia gave out its Sputnik vaccine. Now, I heard from people in Latin America who were like, yeah, that shit don't work. They were like, it's kind of broken. But it was like in a gesture, an overture to say, we're trying. I mean, whatever. Like, we want to help. We want to be a superpower that isn't just known for its military might. And, it's Ilhan Omar also says that in those moments in the refugee camp and knowing that she was alive thanks to US aid, it softened her. It made her look kindly on the United States, that she believed in the United States, and that she wanted to, obviously get involved as an organizer and then, run for office and on and on and on. So I feel like that is not discussed nearly enough.
I think that's a great point. And I think that that's what right-wing isolationism really looks like, right? Which is not cutting into militarism, but cutting into our methods of soft power, which have been dwindling since really the Second World War. The big picture part of this is that after the Allies were successful in defeating Hitler, the Nazis, the U.S. and other the U.S. was really involved in rebuilding Germany. Now, it had its issues, right? I think it kept we had Operation Paperclip in the United States, and I think it kept a lot of horrible people and institutions in power, and Germany's financial power is still in the shadow of that, right? But that was a use of soft power, right? After we had just fought the Nazis, okay, we're going to rebuild Germany a little bit. And then flash forward to decades later, we basically had decided after our economy was as good as anything in the 70s that now it's time to hollow things out. And perhaps we're past the dirty manufacturing being here onshore. Why don't we ship it off to other countries? And why don't we cut taxes for the wealthy? And as that happened, as our economy and we began to manufacture things physically less in the United States, what got built up? And by the way, Silicon Valley is a child of this. The military industrial complex. California, that was a massive industry out there. And now our military is double the size of all of the rest of the world combined. So the incentive is always to use hard power. And then the Republicans come in and they claim it's corruption to have these soft power elements. And that's the other thing about corruption and it's not really a rant. It's just, I want people to think critically about when people say corruption. I used to say corruption was the biggest problem with our government. And now I say capitalism or with our society, really. And it's because corruption was used to imprison Lula in Brazil, for example. Corruption and establishment, these are terms that are extremely nebulous.
So totally
not connected to a material vision for the world. And so the establishment for me means the military industrial. I mean, it can mean anything in different contexts. There's an establishment in New York State's government and an establishment in the federal government. What are we talking about here? And then with corruption, sometimes it's very straightforward. Elon Musk, that's corruption. But then you have him calling everything else corruption. And
exactly.
So, without having a vision of leftism, of decommodifying the essentials of life, of taxing the wealthy, of changing the structure of our economy, you can't make those claims because they just get co-opted by the
It's like saying anything. It's like saying racial divisions without actually understanding power.
Yeah.
It's basic understanding of power. Saying corruption without understanding power is pointless. Saying establishment without talking about power is pointless. So I totally agree with you. And before we leave, let's just name that USAID has more than 10,000 people on staff and make up 1% of the federal budget. So this is a drop in the bucket. And that's not to say it couldn't be better, but I would never attack USAID from the right. I would never say actually, I think it's good. That's bullshit. That's a losing strategy. Let's go on though, because speaking of strategy, Well, okay, before we actually go on, I do want to mention, Emma, the Democrats' role in this, because we are in a week, and I really think the top line is, how in the hell are Democrats still confirming Trump nominees? I just mentioned in Orange Man Bad, Chris Wright as Energy Secretary, Scott Bessent, who turned around and handed Elon Musk access to the Treasury. 15 Democrats voted for him, including Cory Booker and, of course, John Fetterman, but Ruben Gallego, Kirsten Gillibrand, Alyssa Slotkin. These are the people who are like, well, maybe if we, I mean, what's the play here? Maybe if we confirm some of their seemingly less crazy,
I fucking hate John Fetterman, bro. Fuck John Fetterman. What a fucking Pennsylvanian loser. Pennsylvanian loser, dude.
Nominations that then will be fine afterwards. It's just like, it's insane. So, I mean, I've been urging people to call on these senators and be like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Well, it looks like, I mean, this isn't the Democrats, but it looks like RFK, it looks like everyone's getting through. Everyone. Even if I could have picked one, just to say, I don't know about you. If you
like, who would you say no to?
If I had to, like a wish, RFK Jr. is the 100%.
Oh yeah, and you're not even a mom. Like as a parent, I'm like, this is fucking terrifying for children right now. Like, absolutely, RFK Jr. is out. But here's Jerry Connolly again. What is it?
This is the guy who beat AOC on oversight
on the oversight committee, and here's him outside of.
This is the guy with esophageal cancer that Nancy Pelosi made some phone calls from her like hospital bed because she fell and like broke her hip, and she got this dude elected.
The USAID, and he's really gonna stick it to Elon Musk. These are the Democrats in all of their resistance power.
And Elon, if you want to run AID, get nominated by Trump and go to the Senate, and good luck in getting confirmed.
Yes. Whoops.
What?
What's so funny about that is they're just confirming anyway. And it's not to say if all of them voted no, right, they wouldn't still be able to get him across the finish line given the breakdown. But like there are many ways to gum up the works. You can obviously just do, not show up, on and on and on. But so this is, I mean,
this motherfucker's giving them ideas, bro. That's crazy.
I'm gonna really to use the Argentina phrase, que se vayan todos, which was in 2001 during their economic crisis and collapse. They were like,
que se vayan todos.
Everybody needs to go. Que se vayan todos. They all need to go. They went through 8 presidents in 2 weeks or 9 presidents in 2 weeks. I can't remember what the rundown was. And that's the feeling I have. Like, you fucking, all of y'all suck. Like, you all need to go.
Yeah, I mean, the party, if our institutions weren't so, I feel like, ossified, like I would be like, oh, it's going by the way of the Whig Party. I mean, see you later. It's a coalition of everybody who isn't a Republican. That's the problem, is the Republicans have, it's an uneven playing field because they more aggressively serve capital. They can have messaging that's more uniform for that reason. And then you have in the Democratic Party, like everybody from Josh Gottheimer to AOC. So it's harder to come to a consensus on that front. But, I do think that there's a part of the party that just thinks that the country needs to just go through this and then they'll be able to come out on top. And
isn't that Schumer's line? His line was like, Trump's gonna mess up, and you're like, you mean mess us up? Like, look at what's happening, mess up. They're not messing up according to their plans.
But that from Schumer is the exact reason why this right now, I think the governors in this country are doing a way better job of resisting Donald Trump. Yeah. And I think that's a reason why a lot of the hopefuls for if, there was some blitz primary in 2024, that it would have been one of those folks.
Right.
But Whitmer, Walz, and then J.B. Pritzker are messaging this and fighting back in public in a way that is just so refreshing, because you see the institution of the Senate. It's just they are so disconnected. I mean, it's put in stark relief. And in 2020, part of the reason that Biden rose to the top, and frankly, was like, did we have one governor run? I mean, it was Biden, Bernie, Warren, mayor of South Bend, Gillibrand, Booker, like everybody from the Senate and their mother decided to get into the race. They don't know how to govern. They are just institutionalists. At least these governors that come from the outside, they are in the executive position in their state, and they're like, I'm going to wield power. I mean, Walz was why I was excited about the VP pick. But you can see that like the Washington insider class, and I do feel like that Kamala Harris was hemmed into, and she didn't have enough talent to really be like, say no to this kind of thing, or good instincts. But her instinct was to pick Walz, which was a good one. And then everything was like consulting class takeover. Yeah. It's that.
Then rein him in.
Yeah, it's that, and it's the senators and the Senate institution in our DC corporate consultant class that has continuously steered the Democrats down a path of like, maybe if we just drop the woke stuff and keep everything, we'll be okay. That's the lesson that they're learning, and that's why
maybe we just move to the even farther to the right on immigration.
Totally.
Maybe if we just never talk about trans people, they don't exist.
Economic populism. When I hear that come out of Chris Murphy's mouth, the damn senator from Connecticut who is getting a divorce, and you can tell he has real divorce guy energy. I have no faith that when he talks about economic populism, that it means what AOC means or what we mean. Yeah. I'm concerned that they're confusing. It's this popularism, Matt Iglesias thing that the Biden administration embraced. Just go with what's popular. Do what's popular. You have control. I'm got mad again. You have control over public opinion. You have agency. You have the ability to change the conversation as the Republicans did. And now you're caving it to him and saying, we just got to go with it. We got to do what's popular.
Which it's not even popular.
That's such bullshit. Yeah.
But also it's morally wrong. I've always felt this. It's like, again, these are throughout history, desegregation, not popular. Like all of these, issues that have never been popular.
MLK had a 33% approval rating right before he was assassinated. I guess we shouldn't have fought for civil rights or his vision or his war on poverty or his anti-Vietnam War activism, because it was unpopular. They're conflating popularism with populism, and I don't like the term populism for the fact that it is also nebulous as well. Sure. But still, the Democrats, that's what they're doing. And popularism is a stupid ideology. It's very dumb and acts like the politicians are just passive in changing the national conversation.
Yeah, and I also think it's not always true in every issue. In fact, in most issues. And you happen to host a show called The Majority Report for a reason. The majority of Americans believe in things like universal health care. The majority of Americans believe in, free education. Like the majority of Americans, are on our side, on the progressive side. And it's because we have these Democrats in the effing way. I did want to ask you about, for example, the DNC chair, Ken Martin. Yeah. I'm seeing sort of differing reports. Obviously it's not Ben Wickler, but Ken Martin, he was.
We also take money from good billionaires.
He's from Minnesota, but what is he?
The Democratic, I can never get the acronym right or the full name right. It's the DMFL, Democratic something, Farm Labor, and I forget the full acronym, but they're just like, they're basic. I think my understanding is that in Minnesota, they're like a big part of the Democratic Party.
He's the chairperson. Yeah. The Farmer Labor Party. Exactly. So he won, and, he had this line during some of the debates that was like, I believe in working with good billionaires. And then when he was finally won, he was like, we need to tackle the billionaires. And so I saw Sunrise Movement, who protested very heartily and amazingly during that, entire debate and discussion for the DNC chair. They were taking that as a win, but I guess I'm curious, how you feel about the chair. Does it matter? Is this way more than that?
Well, I was rooting for Wickler. I know Fashikir entered late. I didn't really understand that decision. I mean, I think he got like 2 votes.
That's Bernie's former, campaign.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, it was always a 2-man race. And then at the end of the day, I was like worried that that there would be vote splitting, and that's why Ken Martin would win. And then if you added up every other vote plus Wickler, Martin would have won. So it doesn't really matter. He's an improvement over Jamie Harrison, but who wouldn't be? I would also say he's an improvement over Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Right, we've forgotten how far we've gone, like how low we've gone.
Like Martin was not my first choice, but he is better than both of those folks. And like Jamie Harrison's number one role was, I don't know, retweeting Mueller, she wrote, and getting into fights with Bernie supporters on social media, and changing the primary schedule to basically say like, no, there's going to be no primary for this very elderly president who is clearly losing his grip and funding a genocide. No. We're going to go against like the state law in New Hampshire and just unilaterally say, hey, South Carolina's first, because that's the state that Biden won in 2020, and that's when everybody got behind him.
Yep.
And it's more conservative.
And it was so bad faith too, because it's like they couched it as being a more diverse state and a more black state, which like I'm for. Like if that's the reason, I don't think there's any reason
Bernie
why
won Nevada. Is that Nevada's diverse too, but they just don't count that because it doesn't align with their interests.
Right. But it's just like, Biden had so many of those bad faith identity politics moments where you're just like, this is such a bastardization of what you pretend to care about, So yeah, that was gross. Not that I'm like, look, I like New Hampshire well enough, but I definitely don't think it should go first. I don't think it's representative of the nation.
Agreed. But like Iowa, but it's in their state laws, so it created it. I mean, remember there was that whole write-in campaign for Biden in New Hampshire, and
that's right.
And that was because
nobody talks about them unless we're talking about primaries. I get it.
It created an insane right, exactly. So, but my point is just that at least Ken Martin operates on the state level and like didn't lose to the Lindsey Graham by 10 points like Jamie Harrison did.
That's right.
He's basically a corporate lobbyist. Martin and Wickler are both at least organizers and lawmakers within their
from Minnesota,
states.
right? Which mean with like walls, which means a lot given how much they have been able to accomplish for the people there and on the progressive agenda. And everyone's like looking at Minnesota like, fuck. I've been very jealous lately.
I'm so jealous of them too. Yeah, except it can't be around that much cold all the time. So unfortunately, and I like the ocean, but Minnesota does seem like a great place to move. And then probably if there's some climate change, not bad.
That's right. Hey, ooh. Emma, we have to talk about this before I let you go, because I will talk about tariffs in a bit, but I know you've got limited time. And I want to just say, you were always scheduled to be on this program before this happened. But it was very serendipitous that it went down like this. Because this last week, I decided to make some content. And, one of my viewers reminded me that, Cenk Uygur on my show when we debated said that I was crazy for saying that, there would be camps created to house undocumented
concentration
people.
Camps.
And then, of course, the Guantanamo news is announced. So I made this little slice. You want to have a beer with people who want to put people in mass deportation camps. They want to deport.
You think we're going to get put in camps? You sound all right.
Get fucked, Cenk, you stupid piece of shit. I hope you get deported to Guantanamo Bay first.
Now, if you're listening, those are headlines about said Guantanamo pivot. And this then obviously was not received well. But of course, look, we do things on the internet. I'm sure there are people, Emma, who are mad at you and are like, see, because you felt confident that Kamala Harris would win. Mm-hmm. We make predictions, we say things, and because this is what we do, we often get proven it wrong, and we need to be able to take that kind of criticism. And in my opinion, especially about something so consequential, like the treatment of 30,000 people who have literally done nothing wrong other than live in this country without papers. So that's why I made that.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, you're trying to make a living on the internet, and we have to use social media and I don't.
And once again, I am a multimillionaire, so I just want to, name that. Richies. And that obviously didn't sit well. Cenk actually kind of took it on the chin. He just said it was out of context. It was not out of context. Everyone can go back and look. He said that I was talking about Chinese Americans. I actually never mentioned Chinese Americans until after. I didn't even say Americans. I just mentioned Chinese people because undocumented Chinese people are a target of this administration. Mm-hmm. The point is this. I want to separate from here on off. Let's detach the Cenk cart. Let's just bye-bye. And let's talk about Anna. Anna Kasparian, again, a co-host at TYT, got very mad and said that I am attacking Cenk and sort of, stood up for the we over there last week.
Francesca Fiorentini is currently attacking you about this as if Donald Trump is unique. He's novel compared to past presidents, certainly a special kind of evil that we've never seen before. In her mind, these are the gulags that she was warning about. But
also never said gulags, but a special kind of evil, never said that.
In fact, this has been a longstanding practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
Yeah, so I'm going to address it. I think that the clip that Francesca's using is misleading and totally out of context, but that's okay. But I know that—
No, it's not okay. No, it's not okay. That dishonesty is not okay.
Get me, get me.
Go ahead.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't mean to
But she's getting the likes that she wants, right? Otherwise, I mean, who would pay attention to anything she's doing?
Let's go. Let's go, girl. Let's go, Regina.
Anyway, continue, Cenk.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever pay attention to anything I'm doing. This is true. I will, however, say I did hit 100,000 on YouTube before I even invited Cenk on. I've had a very robust career before and after my time at TYT, which I actually enjoyed from time to time. I did. I was at AJ Plus. I worked at MSNBC, had a special there. I worked for National Geographic Channel. I did like things for Coachella live stream.
Damn,
Don't kill me. It was a whole thing. It was fun. And now I'm working also with Zateo. So, this is fun though, Emma. And so now I wasn't going to say nothing.
Can we pause there for just a sec, really briefly,
Sure.
so I can just address what you said? So so first of all, I appreciate your being very fair. Getting an election prediction wrong to me is different than like protecting marginalized people from an incoming president who has basically a far right agenda. I would say that's a little bit different. But yeah, I was wrong and people clowned on me. I take it on the chin. We're
Yes,
in
you do.
political discourse and debate space. And as long as it's not, I would say, bad faith, I mean, you get that from the right, but if I get it from the left, you got to take it on the chin. It's what I've signed up for. And I only really responded to Anna because I saw that video and you're my friend. She used to be my friend. And if she had been putting out continuously like content that I think is making the world better, I would defend her if the roles were reversed, and you were saying that about her, but that time has passed. And when she said no one would pay attention to you if you weren't talking TYT, that got me really angry because a lot of us are really, like, I consider myself extremely lucky that I lucked into an internship with TYT, and I was able to work myself work up at the company again for little pay, as I've talked about, and I know you've experienced, a lot of other people have as well. I was able to live at home during that period and save up and, live at my mom's house, who she's now bringing into this debate for no reason, because of private conversations that we've had. But I just feel like you are so talented, and Michael Brooks passed away, and there was a spot open, horrifically, a spot open for me at the Majority Report. I was lucky.
Sure.
I could be in a different industry if that didn't happen. You have had sometimes bad luck, like with AJ Plus and stuff. I mean, it's
no, I really didn't actually. I just am allergic to money, Emma. Just don't worry about it. I left AJ Plus. AJ Plus
you're so
offered
deserving,
me.
And it's
AJ Plus offered me in 2018 when they were moving to DC a very handsome salary that I turned down because I had been there for, at that point, 4 years, and I wanted to move on, and I wanted to move to LA. So that's what happened to me. And I'd moved to LA not for TYT. I moved to LA to actually like pitch more shows, do more comedy, meet more people, get managers and agents and whatnot. And I did. So that is, I've had a lot of luck, and I've also turned a lot of shit down. So I just want to name that. But I really, here's what I love about this. Here's what I love about this. I have tried for so many months, Emma, to not put these people's names in my mouth, to not talk about them, to hold my tongue, to refrain from talking about it. And as someone who also watches the Majority Report, I actually know you and Sam have taken also great lengths, but that the broader left audiences on platforms like YouTube and elsewhere are distraught. They are upset. They see the coverage of crime and homelessness and blaming fires on, some unhoused guy that totally turned out to be false, and the Aurora, Colorado, gang takeover, and the DEI when talking about the FAA and the crash recently, on and on and on to the cozying up to Trump. And they are upset and they are livid. And so what I decided to do was to talk to Cenk. And to be full disclosure, Anna also agreed to talk to me. However, she had a family emergency, And I said, dude, you take care of that. Do not come on my show. I wish you the best. Good luck with that. And that week she went on Glenn Beck's show. So anyway, be that as it may, I don't think I'm going to be getting her back on the show. But the reason I just want to thank you because you cut strays for me, speaking of making it super personal. But I just want to say, Emma, none of this is personal with TYT. None of it is. It's like it truly for me. I'm actually I think Anna and I have been like friendly, you know, took a hike a couple times, but none of it was personal. It's always about the politics for me. And it gotten to the place, which honestly, I really do still welcome her to actually hear her out. But because I want to know, why are we covering things like this? Why are we talking about things like this? Why are we focusing on these small granules that miss the forest for the trees? Is it because ultimately you've never been a progressive? Is it because ultimately you are kind of a centrist, that you might be left on certain issues like corruption or, you know, capitalism and whatnot? Although, you know, jank TBD on union rights. But that ultimately, when it comes to things like unhoused people, crime, you believe the right-wing narrative. When it comes to undocumented people, you believe that you should plaster the face of an undocumented mentally ill man who was falsely accused of starting a fire, the Kenneth fire, which was not the Palisades fire or the Eaton fire, in the middle of this wildfire. You believe in plastering that person's face on your Chiron, and when he has not been charged, and blame homeless people like crazy ass Mel Gibson. That is a political disagreement.
Right.
This is not personal, and it sure as shit is not about clicks, because let me say, the amount that I could say and choose not to, when both she and, let's bring the cart back in, and Jank are on a little bit of a war path against every single person they used to work with, that we know, that we love, that we like.
Yeah.
David Dole, for example.
Yeah.
Mike Figueredo, like all these other people, to say nothing of former employees. It's really, really sad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to chew on there. You know, I will even say we tried to avoid it, and we clip out the fact that it was clipped when we had an IM or a call in. But you know, at the end of the day, as I was saying, they're adults. We're in the political debate and discourse space, and you've got to be able to take the heat and have the better argument. And based on their view counts, it doesn't seem like people think that they have the better argument anymore. So they choose to go after people on Twitter for engagement. And as you say, I, of course, could use information that I know from my personal relationship with Anna and friendship, where we would have many calls and conversations. I could have chosen to use that stuff against her. I chose not to. She doesn't seem to have those scruples, but she distorted things about my life. The fact that my parents were lawyers and I grew up with some privilege, to make a claim that I don't have to work for a living.
And we kind of like love you harder for that. And I think,
yeah, and like the way my sister's a lawyer, the way she lives very different than the way I live now. Well, she just started. Congrats to her, but it's like, you know, I'm really proud of her, right? And I could have gone down that road too, and but I chose not to, and I, you know, don't make as much money because of it. And my parents, they did well. They don't have the means to support me for the rest of my life. Like the amount of money that she describes there it's just a lie. And I think she's probably somewhere we had where I said I could have gone to law school and made a lot of money and not had to work for the rest of my life. That's something I would say.
Right.
But I don't even want to get into it because she discredited herself by claiming falsely right below that in this Twitter storm she was having well into the late hours of Saturday night, even on her time, that the Majority Report did paid ads for the Harris campaign, which is like frankly defamatory. I mean, it's if you want to go down that road, that never happened or ever having had close to, you know, it was never close to happening, and we would never do that, and people would probably notice if we did ads. So I was making a joke that like we did it in code, but it just is. It's bizarre to use, and I knew it was a matter of time because of how desperate and unhappy she seems, that she was going to use our private conversations for her own ends. But again, I hate making it about myself. I don't talk about my family life. I try not to. I don't mention my fiance's name publicly. I try not to say my friends' names publicly.
Matt Lee.
I take my privacy extremely seriously. And she knew that, but she still chose to put me on blast anyway, because it feeds into an existing right-wing meme about who I am. But I got to stop talking about myself because it's really about them. Sorry, Francesca.
No. I mean, you didn't need to do all that, but it's fine that you did, because again, it was you were personally attacked by her. I'm not going to throw up the tweet, but to continue a little bit and to close, I think the other thing that's very revelatory for me and has been very upsetting, and the reason why I asked her to come on the show, is because Cenk came on the show. And even though he had been making the rounds on right-wing outlets, Patrick Bet-David, and going, on to the TPUSA conference and wanting to have a beer with Charlie Kirk, he did come on my show. He did go on Mark Lamont's Hill shows. He went on Brian Tyler Cohen's show. He actually faced some supposed, some leftists, some progressives. And instead, we have smatterings of where Anna's been over the last 6 months to a year.
Look at all these right-wing ass shows, dude. She's a fucking right-winger. Straight up.
To longer. She's been making the rounds on right-wing news with, obviously, these are obviously thumbnails. So I'm not saying this is exactly what she said, but she does make the argument that the left is the biggest problem and that they are the ones who've made her leave the left. What I got wrong with Glenn Beck, how the left is alienating its own people with Chris Williamson, who's sort of, again, standard YouTube, mass account. Why I left the left with some, what did that health influencer Jillian lady? Obviously, got to go on Piers Morgan. Dems made a deal with the devil. Anna Kasparian slams her old party. Anna on why she's calling out the lack of self-reflection by the Dem side of the left with Megyn Kelly. I don't have a problem with calling out the lack of self-reflection from the left. I don't have a problem with talking about purity politics. I don't have a problem with talking even about some of the issues that, again, she thinks are, intractable. Like, again, crime stats being up when they're actually not. Homelessness. It's like, well, what do we do? All these Dems are just getting their hands in the pile of homelessness services. And that's why, I am for homelessness services, but these Democrats, that's why I'm voting for Rick Caruso. I'm telling you, it's okay to have these conversations. But where you are having them shows a lot about not just your ideology, but your willingness to sell your former colleagues down the river and the broader movement as a whole because they're using you. They're using you. And are you cool with being used like that?
Well, I think
yes.
It's obvious. I think that clearly, she's not on the left, the announcement that she made. And so I don't understand why she has to keep pretending if she isn't doing what Dave Rubin, what other Why I Left the Left people have done in the past, which is essentially elevating your profile and going on these right-wing shows while validating all of their talking points and saying that you're representative of the left when you're not. Piers Morgan does this all the time on his show where he says he's a liberal and then he says
I'm basically a liberal.
Right. It's a very, very lucrative way to operate in media. It's short. The shelf life is not great, and you may cash in. Like Dave Rubin has made millions, but his views don't do that well because he had to eventually admit he was a conservative and not the last liberal. So she's going down that path, it seems.
They were like, ew,
that person was leading the unionization effort. Right. I'm hearing about these closed door meetings that they have where there are lawyers that are kind of intimidating folks. Mm-hmm. And that was around the time when I'd heard about this that I made the decision to leave the show because it seemed to me that there were some overstretched finances and also a lack of real belief in a left-wing project. And I said, I learned really to trust my gut in that way. But I do just want to say one thing about that as well is Anna also implied in that tweet that that we would be the reason that they would have to lay off employees. And that's why they took that poly-market sponsorship because other people have been critical of them. I'm just truly in awe of the inability to self-reflect or take a step back from one's own ego to say that it's everyone else around them that's the problem. Everybody else is just trying to make money off of them. Everybody else is grifting. It's not us. We don't have to look internally about our own decisions and life choices and our own extreme anger that's off-putting in and of itself for the show. I tuned in a few years ago and I was just I can't watch this shit anymore. They're just screaming.
You're talking to a stand-up comic. I have to have some levity, otherwise I'll die.
It's crazy. They seem very unhappy, and also it reflects in their coverage. And I don't know. Look, again, I don't care about that but I hope they're okay. At the end of the day, I don't want Anna to be suffering. I don't want things to be bad for her.
I hope that she finds the peace she's looking for. Right now, we got a Thelma Louise situation, but there ain't no cliff. They're just driving around in circles. I don't know where we're going, but they've made a blood pact. And I feel like we're along for the ride. And I just want to clarify, I've never been an employee at TYT. I've got another story for another time. There was a close call. I could have sued. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I've never been a full-time employee. I get asked to be on and I say yes or no. I rarely say no. I don't think I'm ever going to be asked to be back on the main show. Ever. I think that was sealed, if not after I had Mondale Robinson on, if not after I interviewed Cenk. I think probably by putting out a Curb Your Enthusiasm meme, that was sealed.
Damn.
So but I would love to go on and actually have a robust debate, like I've often floated.
We offered them too. I mean, Sam has offered multiple times, and he says he's a grifter, which is very funny because I have to beg Sam to buy new shirts today. Again, his shirt had a hole in the sleeve. It's like, he wears the same 5. I'm sorry.
Damn.
He wears the same 5. And I can tell, I'm like, that's the one, that's the white one with the blue marker. Like, why don't you just buy another J. Crew factory shirt? I know they're like $40, dude. Just, please.
They're not. They're, well, I may feel like they're like 25 at this point. Depends on what you're buying from. But yeah, go to Marshall's. What are we doing? No, yeah, exactly. It is. And that's the other thing is like, if we're doing it for clicks, it's for personally, it's because I don't got a salary. I buy my healthcare, and I have
in the media business
ever since 2016 when I started working with TYT. I took maternity leave, but not really because nobody was paying me, as I had to take time off to have a child and to raise a child. Never was on TYT salary, never was offered any compensation for that time. I've given them a lot of my time. And again, I don't regret it. I've enjoyed it. But it is a stretch to ever say, I would never say they have to thank me. And I would never say that I would thank them. It's adults. It's it's work. That's what it is. We are adults. We are not loyalists, and no one should be a loyalist to any place that they work for or anyone.
And if they expect it's unprofessional to put your personal relationships over your integrity and your journalistic integrity and how you call these things. It was upsetting for me to have to sever that tie. I don't like to do it. I said, I've made this joke before. Ask my exes. I stay in relationships. I've stayed in relationships way too long when I shouldn't have. I don't like doing it. But I had to make that decision because I had to put my professional integrity over my personal desire to like make things right with a company that I had admired my whole life and people there who I had been like so excited to become close with or friendly with or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, what they're such that their egos are really so out of control and their egos are shattered. And I think that's part of why she's making up all these lies. But at the end of the day, no one would care about what any of these leftist streamers had to say if people weren't tapping into what they're saying. No one's distorting what you're saying. Everybody just thinks it's BS, and that's why they're clicking and why they're not really watching your show anymore.
Yeah, literally, TYT's done, bro. They're like they're going the way to the way of the dodo. Extinct. Bye bye.
Emma, let's leave it there. Thank you so much. And you know what? I think it's people were like, oh, I'm sorry, Anna attacked you. I'm like, dude, Emma actually worked there. Emma's, this is not the first time that Anna spiraled out attacking Emma. Like, so she's been there, done that. So like, thank you for standing up for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about this because it meant something to me, and I appreciate you. And everyone needs to be watching.
Stick together. Look, I mean, I last thing I'll say on this, I have regret. I should have stood up for like Olayemi, who's also my friend back in the day, but I was still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. And when I saw her say that no one would listen to you, I'm about to get mad. Francesca, you're brilliant and you're smart and you're funny.
I know.
And like,
I know. No,
there are so few women. Crystal is like, there are some dynamite superstar women in this space that we all need to be banding together and standing together. Like, I work in an all-male office. A majority of our audience is male. We need to bring in women into the progressive movement.
Not mine.
So
I'm like 75-25 female male.
Oh damn, I need to get into
like a good 10 non-binary. So not even tripping. No, exactly. That's exactly right. There are so few women in this space, and we do have to support one another. Emma Vigeland, you're the best. She's the best. Literally the last 15 months of genocide. Your coverage has been so critical, and I think a lot of people are finding out about you with Sam, but also separate from. I think if the TYT meltdown is another lesson, it's like never speak in we's because it gets weird. Don't do that.
Right.
Anyway, awesome. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here, and
appreciate you. Thanks.
Appreciate you, and thank you all for being here.
For the greatest country in the world. For the countries I and my little girls who are number one exporters and sugar. All other countries have inferior sugar. Cuba, home of famous cigar. It's started by capitalists all around the world. Cuba, you're a very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Cuba, friend of all except America. They're very nosy people.